everyone, thanks for tuning in. We are joined here today with co-writer, director Rouzbeh Heydari and co-writer and actor Dana Abraham of the psychological horror film Neon Lights, which is slated to release on July 12th. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us, guys. It means a lot.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we had the privilege of checking out Neon Lights. And I definitely will say, you know, I was trying to think of a better way to summarize it, but psychological horror seemed like a fitting title. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, I would absolutely agree with both of that. Yeah.
Would either one of you, and maybe Rouzbeh, maybe you could take on the lead on this one. Would you mind giving like a spoiler-free synopsis for our listeners?
Yeah, Neon Lights is a story about a tech tycoon named Clay Amani, who is trying to, you know, deal with past issues and heal from them.
Okay. All right. Really, really ominous right there. Let's just leave it at that.
That's how he does it. Just like kind of mysterious, like flow. Because you know what he wants? He wants you to go watch it.
Yeah, leave him wanting more. Good job, Rouzbeh. I like that.
In one sentence, too. One sentence. Boom, locked it down.
Somewhat of a run-on, but we'll work on that later.
I like it. That's probably a first if someone did it in one sentence. How did you two link up for this project?
Oh man, you know, I'll let Rouzbeh take that one. Go ahead, bro.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's an emotional story. It's a story that I'll never forget. It lives with me forever. I mean, the world had shut down. Everything was plunged into darkness. And a mutual friend introduced Dana to me and me to Dana online through Zoom. And he was just like, you guys got to know each other. Why don't you know each other? And, you know, it was almost love at first sight. We got along first off as humans, and then creatively just gelled like I've never gelled before with anyone. And the world was, you know, not, you know, every day is uncertain. The next moment is uncertain, but, you know, that time really reminded us of that in those days. And we really, you know, we took that immediacy to heart, and we decided we really wanted to make a movie together before who knows what could happen. So we set out to do it, and here we are.
Awesome.
Yeah. We just, you know, at the end of the day, Rouz is, he's my creative partner. We work diligently together on, I mean, we've done a second feature together since Neon Lights. It's ready for release this fall, and we're on our third together. But on top of that, like, I'll call him about everything. Like, I'll call him, if my plants are dying, I'll give him a ring. If a girl's broken my heart, or girls have broken my heart, I'll give him a ring. So we're just pretty much, we're more than just filmmakers and colleagues. We're really just brothers, and like he said, it's love at first sight. He's somebody I'm really, really close with since we had that first initial Zoom call.
Yeah, you know what I really appreciate. So we've had a number of like co-writers and co-directors on here, and it does seem like there's always this like really strong bond that I don't know if it forms during that creative process, or if the bond is what actually spawns the creative process. What would you guys say for you?
I think it's a bit from column A, a bit from column B, because that bond is not, you know, that creative process is not going to come to fruition if the bond isn't there. But also, when you're spending day and night and day and night and day and night with someone, you gotta, you know, you're gonna have a stronger bond with them. It's just going to happen. And you can't spend day and night with someone like pouring your insides out to each other if you don't like them. If the bond, you know, so it's one leads to another, and the other way as well, right?
Well, I'll say this. I think, you know, Rouz is such a brilliant visionary. He's a great creative. And for me, as much as I love acting, I love producing as well. And Red Hill, the banner that I've launched with my co-founder, Kamar, I take that to heart. You know, for me, it's creating jobs, creating opportunities, making a multitude of films, not just one. It's creating a vertical growth. Rouz just understood that right from the jump. We, you know, there's a growing phase where you're just getting to know each other, you're understanding how to work with each other. But for Rouz and I, we just had a high degree of respect for one another, and it spanned across not just as colleagues and equals from that level, but also as people and human beings, specifically at a time where we really needed that, where the world was shut down, where, you know, we were kind of isolated. And all in all, I mean, I'm sure it exudes every time we have a conversation together. And I mean, we spend so much time together. We're on a flight together in less than 12 hours to Los Angeles. But you know, at the end of the day, it's somebody, like he said, you have to enjoy spending time with. I enjoy being on set with him. I enjoy talking creatively with him. I enjoy talking about life with him. He's inspired me on many platforms, including the spirituality sense. And so he's somebody that's impacted me on several different aspects of my life. So, I mean, again, it's a testament towards his character, but also a little bit of A and a little bit of B for sure.
Love you, man.
Love you too, brother.
I love the cat in the corner.
Oh, it's actually my dog. I'm sorry. I got to now address it.
All I see is this little tail. Oh, look out.
Cleo, you want to just say hi?
Hey, buddy.
I think so. Yeah.
There, I'm sorry, guys. She's
No,
super excited.
Oh,
That's
no.
great.
All right, there you go.
I live in Noah's Ark. I got 3 cats, a turtle, a hedgehog, and
Oh, you're ready to go. You got a whole you
Yeah.
got a museum
Yeah,
to
so,
do. Yeah. Awesome.
animal lover here.
Amazing.
So I know you guys have already worked on a couple of other projects from what I've seen, but Ruz, I wanted to ask you, you had an interesting project in your resume. It looked like you worked on a Drake film.
So I came up in the music video world, and I've done hundreds of them. And I used to cut all of Drake's videos since 15 years ago. And, you know, I have nothing but love for the music video world. And, you know, it's a place where young filmmakers get to, you know, earn their stripes and experiment and you know, sharpen their teeth, so to speak, and then move on from. So, yeah, I did started from the bottom. I did Worst Behavior, DNF. I did I'm So Fly with Paige, you know, and Snoop stuff, Belly, Ludacris, you name it.
Do you feel like doing the music videos has actually like influenced how you direct in film?
I mean, music videos are a grind, and obviously, yeah. And I used to cut a lot of them. Like I used to cut, you know, 10 a month. And yes, I learned what not to do by looking at all that footage and seeing what gets thrown out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I will say the one thing about Rouzbeh is he has a level of work ethic that I just don't think you can replicate. I mean, there's I mean, okay, fine. Let's put it out there. Like obviously my experience and expertise level isn't for decades, but nonetheless, you get to see and you get to read and you get to learn about the industry. And Rouzbeh's work ethic is unparalleled because the guy, he spent months with me on Neon Lights, and then he spent months with me on 100 Lives, and we're already preparing 100 Black Cat, which is just a few months out. But show me directors that like who create, you know, blueprints of like landscape and the locations with AutoCAD just to see the camera angles and measure things out. Him and Dimitri, our cinematographer, doing that months out before we got to location. So I can't really see music video directors ever doing things like that. I think that's something that maybe came down from his father a little bit, but his work ethic is just unparalleled as far as direction goes. And it's easy to work with. And when we show up on the day, things are effortless. And from a production side, the one thing that I don't think, because I'm such a kind person, as you guys can assume, when it comes to producing, I'm very, very tedious, very A-type, because our big thing is nobody was giving out money during the pandemic, right?
Right.
And no, I mean, nobody's easy to part ways with money, period, especially not in a volatile industry like film. Then you couple that in with the pandemic where tomorrow was uncertain, nothing was guaranteed, and we didn't know if we would sell the movie or not. Thankfully, E1 came along and momentum came along, but I was very stringent with every dollar and how we spent it. And then you couple in the fact of, you know, the pandemic and the risk factors. Ruz is just brilliant. He prepared like another. And so you can't pick that up in the music video and music world at all. That's something self-created.
Awesome.
I mean, I'll speak to that too. I mean, like the first 2 films I made, the first short film and then the first feature in Iran I made, and growing up with a father who was a filmmaker since the 60s, he's been making pretty cool movies back home in Iran. I learned how to shoot on 35, right? And when you get to shoot on 35, you don't have film to waste. Like every angle and every shot and every line that you capture has to be deliberate. And I think that really helped us in Neon Lights because, as Dana knows, we had such a tight schedule. It was not too many shooting days, and you know that bringing that knowledge forth, just being deliberate with every shot, really moved things along. So we're not covering it from, 30 different angles and letting the editor figure it out. No, that's not filmmaking to me. You got to know what you're looking at, why and when.
100%.
That's really good. I think you captured the emotion of the film really well. So it's kind of cool to hear somebody actually say, I had it all planned out.
Right.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
you never hear that. It's always like, well, we did this angle, and then we did this angle, and then we did this angle. Like,
I mean, I'll add one more to that. Like, how often do you hear about films going into overtime? I mean, the biggest fight the film industry had last year was IATSE because of overtime and wages and etc. Imagine an independent film during the height of the second wave. We didn't have any overtime days. And I think Rouzbeh mentioned it before, but one of the days he comes to me, he's like, I'm pretty sure we're done shooting. I've gotten everything I needed today. We're like an hour and a half before call times, like before we're done for the day, before tail lights, before we wrap, sorry. And I was like, are you sure? Like, did you miss stuff? He's like, no, I got everything. And I'm like, no, you missed stuff for sure. Like, what's going on? There's no way. It's preparation. And then you couple in the fact that, an incredible first AD, a very well experienced first AD, and a great team around him. And that's a recipe for, success.
Also, when you listen to the masters, dare I say, like the Coen brothers or Hitchcock speak about the process, there's always talk about the film is made on paper in prep.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no guessing when you're there, unless it's a comedy improvised thing. That's a whole nother world. That's not what Neon Lights was. But I take the words of those people seriously. When Hitchcock says my films are done on paper, I mean, I love his films and they turned out to be incredible, all of them. So you're like, okay, well, there's a method to that madness. You just prep it.
Yeah. I just want to point out, we have a new country represented here. This is a first. So Iran has not been represented on PVD Horror yet. And we have been kind of keeping track of all the different countries that we've been able to connect with. So you're originally from Iran, Rouzbeh?
Yes, I was born there. And what about, I was born there and came to Canada and then went back to make films. But what about Bangladesh?
There's no way you had Bangladesh for sure.
We have not. We have
that's
not.
two in one day.
That's 2 in 1 because Dana was born.
I was
Go
born
ahead.
in Dhaka. I speak Bengali and Urdu and Hindi. So I speak all three dialects of like the 3 regions there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Josh and I are always kind of like talking about how we never really intended for it, but it's like we've kind of had all these international countries represented and
awesome.
All the different influences we absolutely love. So that's very
cool. We do have Bangladesh represented for listeners, which that was me.
You have had one?
We have a couple actually.
Listeners, not guests.
Oh, listeners. Oh, sorry.
Listeners,
yes.
Yeah. And
love you guys.
it caught me by surprise. I was like, oh, we have people in Bangladesh that like us apparently.
That's amazing, man.
And that always, so PVD is Providence. It's a city inside Rhode Island, which is the smallest state in the United States. And here we are talking to somebody from Bangladesh, that's amazing,
And you know what, man? Like me and my mom, we used to watch Providence. Like, I don't know if you guys watch that, the show that I'm talking about?
Yeah,
we used to watch the show. So I know what you're talking about. I've always, me and my mom always wanted to go. So, maybe we'll visit you guys. And,
absolutely.
But I just think Bruce and I, what we've been able to do, even just for our communities, is a really cool thing because obviously we're largely underrepresented. And, specifically for an actor that's from Bangladesh, it's you seldom ever see it, not just in the Western market, but even in Bollywood. Like Bollywood's predominantly dominated by Indians, right? And so for Bengalis, clean drinking water is the biggest issue. So never mind trying to become an actor, like that's so unfathomable.
Wow.
So for us to be able to do work together where we can give hope to individuals like in Iran or in Bangladesh, where you can foresee yourself now, and when you look at us, we're just mirror images of yourself. It means a lot to us. And so to hear that you guys have listeners down in Bangladesh, dude, that means a ton to me because my culture is just so underrepresented, and obviously in the Western market all across the board, not just in acting. So that's a really big thing. And I hope you guys cherish that because for them to even have internet is a big thing.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And thank you for saying all of that, because that totally puts it into a different light. For us, representation is important. We love when an individual can come on here from, whatever cultural background and be able to just kind of talk about like how they want to represent, you know, themselves within this horror community and the film industry in general. So this is really, it feels important. So I appreciate you guys sharing those words.
Thank you.
You know, I want to jump in here real quick, because you seem like such a nice, down to earth guy. And then I saw you in the movie. So the three of us watched it. Brandon couldn't make it. He has his daughter's in softball or a soccer, and he had a thing. But the three of us talked about it. And I was like, that actor was awesome. How did you prepare for that? Like, looking at you here and looking at you there, completely different.
Well, I make the running joke that that's actually me and this is me acting. So, and it works every time. But you know, no. All jokes aside, man. Look, growing up, I grew up in an area in Hamilton called Oriole Crescent. So it's a highly volatile area. It's ridden by gang culture, gun violence, prostitution, deep in poverty, and that leads to trauma, right? Things that I'm only becoming aware of and unraveling and unpacking. So depression and mental health issues, specifically when I got to university, and I was isolated by myself, hours away from home, from my family, it was severe. And social anxiety took the best of me, where I just really isolated myself, became an introvert. Then over the years, as acting kind of became my thing, and I started getting myself from the inside out and started expressing emotions, I became able to have communication and relationships. But the character Clay, when Rouz and I really started unpacking him and creating him, we wanted to ensure that we weren't making a caricature of individuals that actually did have mental health issues. Yep. Because it would be a disservice to not only them, but to the entire film as a holistic approach, because then all of a sudden you become comical and it's not actually doing anything for anybody, except for the fact that it might be entertaining, but you're not really addressing something that was prevalent, specifically during the height of the pandemic, which is mental health issues. And so we really went down to the minutiae, the small details of why his hands were curled and why he would keep his gaze low. It really just simple things like he was a coder, so he wanted to protect his fingers, so he'd keep his hands inside of his palm, so he felt like it was protecting himself. Everything really came down to protecting himself. He had a little bit of a slouch, almost like a turtle shell. He's trying to protect himself. His gaze would be lowered, and when we were talking about it, it's because in our cultures, in the Islamic culture, you're supposed to keep your gaze down, because looking somebody right in the eye is a threat. It's aggressive, it's aggression. So he would always keep his eyes down. Everything was almost kind of a self-preservation mechanism. And so those minute details were worked out and mapped out as we kind of worked, from August all the way into camera. And everything from like the tick of his laugh when he was in an awkward situation really came down to when Rouz introduced me to a psychotherapist from the University of Toronto. We wanted to be detailed and we wanted to be as authentic and genuine as possible. It took a lot of work. Rouzbeh forced me not to eat, but also it was pandemic. I was broke, so I couldn't eat anyway. Yeah. So it's all good, lost weight. But, we really just went down to the details of the character and the behavior and what was required to be as authentic and genuine as possible. So, there's this entertaining facet of a psychological thriller, but then there's this dramatic sequence and character build and character arcs, and all of the characters, specifically always in Clay. But again, it comes down to Rouzbeh and his specificities and working alongside him. I mean, somebody who's creating AutoCAD blueprints of a location, you can't really work around. You gotta ensure you do the best you can for him too.
Cool.
And I mean, yeah, I'll just add to that. I think both of us at one point looked at each other and realized like this can go in one of two directions, and the direction it absolutely cannot go in is if it's exploitative.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we did so much research, with practitioners, like with my own practitioners that I see, reaching out to academics, with character traits, behavioral traits, situational drama, and just ensured that we were not doing this as an exploitative thing. And it was anything but that. So
so mental health, especially in a horror movie, it's really touchy, and I'm glad you guys are talking about it. One of my questions there was there ever a point where you had written something or you wanted to do something and you said, no, that is too far, that is misrepresentation?
I mean, I'll say this. We work really diligently. Ruz and I work very diligently on every facet. Like, I mean, even just on our next project, we want to introduce. Hey, Ruz, what's the title of it when two females are in a scene and they don't talk about men at all? What was it called?
Yeah, the
Bechdel test.
Bechdel
Bechdel test. We map things out really early. Like we pretty much. I mean, I'm sure you both. It's very similar to Dave and Josh and Brandon. Like you guys really mesh, right? Like you guys understand each other. You know what works for both of you. Ruz and I are very similar in that nature. And so when it comes down to the film itself, there wasn't too many boundaries that we want to push. Because here's the realities of it. Okay, so the realities of it for me, from my perspective, maybe not from Rouzbeh, I don't want to speak for him or anybody else. The likelihood of me making another film was very slim. So, and the likelihood of me getting another lead role across from a name like Kim Coates is also very slim. So I said, I'm gonna go for it. I'm just gonna go for the toughest role that I could ever do. And that way, at least the world could see me, you know, as I'd want to be intended to be seen, which is, I knew that I could do it. And Ruz would every day, I remember there was one moment where I had a little bit of a sliver of a doubt. And I said, do you want to cast this guy? And said, I think it'll be more likely that we can get this movie made if he's the lead. And it was a name. And he said, nope. He said, it's either with you or I'm not going to make it. And so at that point we realized, okay, we're going to push the envelope and we're going to really go for it. We're going to talk about mental health and we're also going to make it entertaining. People said that we couldn't do it. And we said, well, if the Joker could do it, why can't we? Yeah, obviously the scale and the budget's very limited in comparison, but this is our way of showing what we can do with limitations. So that way, when we do get to the studios, you guys can understand that we can execute no matter what scale it is. And so there wasn't too many envelopes or buttons that we were afraid to push, but I mean, we do it together. And I'd go to battle with this guy every day, man. I hope I get put to rest next to him one day. Cause it's just, I feel untouchable when I'm with him, to be honest.
That's awesome.
And we're both very sensible people. I mean, we wouldn't do something that we would feel bad about.
For sure.
And we're very empathetic individuals and sympathize with the world around us. And in fact, sometimes it brings us down to too much. So we, you know, we're not in a position to do something that would hurt others because that would hurt us.
Yeah. I didn't think to mention this earlier, but like, actually, I'm glad you guys are talking about this because mental health, as Josh mentioned, is in horror it's a really delicate subject, but it's really important as well. I am a therapist in my regular job.
Wow, that's
and
cool.
I actually do incorporate horror movies into therapy when it's appropriate because I find them to be really good analogies for real life issues. And for me, it's really important to find ones that, like Josh had mentioned, and you guys are both saying, like that it's done delicately and the representation isn't like this stereotypical, like dangerous, you know, stereotype of a mental health disorder. And what I really loved about your performance is it's not so much what the lines were, it was the body language. And it's the, you know, how your character, like everything you were describing about the gaze, about like that feeling small and the way you curl yourself up to protect yourself, like those are all things that we see people do all the time. And for people to be able to connect with that character and see that, and then the message in the end, which is, you know, obviously we're not going to talk about, but that's a big spoiler. Yeah. That's an important message. For sure. And, you know, I think that it's nice to be able to have these visual representations of difficult scenarios that are hard for people sometimes to identify. Like, I went through this, I'm going through this. So when they see it, it's like, oh, okay, I understand. I can connect to that character. So it's really important to me that we have mental health situations handled appropriately in film. I think it's really helpful. So thank you guys for doing this.
I mean, that's huge. Yeah. I mean, sorry, Ruz, please continue in a sec. But Dave, like that changes the whole landscape of this conversation, you being a therapist, because, you know, the big thing for Ruz and I were to be able to do therapy and healing justice, because, you know, especially for men, especially in a community where I grew up, therapy isn't a thing, man. Like it's you're supposed to tough it out. You're supposed to be burly. You're supposed to keep it together. Not just in the Southeast Asian community, but also in the community of, like, you know, the motorcycle culture, and like in Hamilton, it's raw, gritty, blue collar, blue chip. So for us, it was about paying homage to how therapy and all of those different methods to help, help yourself. It's important. So for you to then watch this film and appreciate it, it's a really big fact where I feel appeased. I'm sure for Rouzbeh as well, but again, I don't want to speak for him. Sorry to cut you off, man. Go ahead.
No, and you're absolutely like, thank you for watching this as a therapist. I mean, I've been in therapy for 3 years now, and you know, I think it's just necessary. I mean, we can all talk about having a toothache, but we should be able to talk about this aching as well, the mind aching. And the reason, like, one of the reasons I love the horror genre, and I want to explore it more, is because there's so much you can say in horror. There's so many things you can talk about with symbolism and metaphor in horror, and it's such a great platform for filmmakers to not only be entertaining, but to say something. And that is truly one of the reasons I think we both like just leaned in on that with this one.
Absolutely.
You guys killed it. From two guys that work in the field, you absolutely killed it. So there you
Thanks.
go.
Thank you, Josh.
That's amazing, man. You do too? You work in therapy as well?
I am not a therapist. I take care of a profoundly mentally handicapped guy.
Oh, that's amazing.
And
Sorry, that means a lot.
he does the same thing. He curls his fingers, he hunches, he will not look at you, he will look down, like all the same mannerisms, especially when he's in an environment where he's not comfortable. In his house, completely different.
Right.
So yeah, and that's when I saw it, that's why I was like, did you see that? It was a powerful performance.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Like, exact, you know.
And our third member, Brandon, is also in the mental health field too. He works with children at one of our psychiatric hospitals in Rhode Island. So the three of us are all kind of heavy into this field, and then I all ironically love the horror genre. So when we see something like a psychological horror, it's just like right up our alley. So this was absolutely that.
I'm so glad we didn't let you down as people that are in the field. That makes, you have no idea how good that makes me feel. Thank you.
Yes.
No, I appreciate that. That's fantastic. I mean, I couldn't have had a better interview, to be honest. Like that's I'm speechless. This is sick. Like this is as good as it can probably get. This is the best compliment I could have. You have no idea how nervous I was. I mean, I'd speak to Rouzbeh and I just, you know, I in moments I just felt like I may have let people down. I may have overdone it or underdone it, and he'd always stand by me in the film itself. But to hear from you guys who work in that field and then to attest to the decisions we made, it just really means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
You know, and Dana, I just want to say one more thing because I know we're running out of time, but I just want to quickly touch on this. Your background is also super interesting as far as like the number of things that you've like opportunities you could have had. I know your father was in art, and it sounds like he was a pretty big name in art, and then you've dabbled in boxing.
Yeah, so it was actually my mom. So my dad left us in Canada when I was 7. I haven't seen him since.
Okay.
My mom is a phenomenal artist, but I boxed my whole life on Team Canada for a lot of that. And yeah, it's a pretty rugged lifestyle, man. But I ended up in acting and changed my life.
I apologize for that mix up.
No, definitely, it's okay.
But you know, just that background and then leading you to here is interesting. I wish I could have like kind of discussed that a little bit more with you, but like obviously you're a very just talented and creative being. Rouzbeh, your vision here was beautiful, and you know the film was very well done. So I mean, just thank you guys so much, and please, if you guys get into another horror film, reach back to us and join us again, and we can have hopefully a longer conversation.
Definitely, we'd love to be in touch with you guys. Maybe we'll take that trip down Providence one day.
Yes.
And we are doing another thriller horror together. It's going to be called Black Cat. It's a modern day adaptation of an Edgar Allan Poe story called The Black Cat.
I love Poe.
Dana has adapted it to modern times, so we're going to camera for that in the fall. Yep. And so hopefully we'll be talking again in a year.
Awesome. And you know, our area over here, Rhode Island, we're big into Poe. He's traveled through here. He stayed here.
That's so cool.
His ghost is in Providence allegedly. So if you ever come, we'll introduce you.
Yeah, that's wicked. Yeah, exactly. How cool is that? Like nobody even knows where he is and like how he passed away. It's just a really cool person to be able to work, adapt his work. So that, yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about that down the line as well.
Awesome. Guys, just quickly tell people where to find you guys on social media and all that, and then just remind us when the film's coming out and where we'll be able to find it.
Awesome. For me, it's I'm on Instagram at I am Dana Abraham, as well as Red Hill Entertainment. You can also find a lot of details about the movie at E1 Films and at Momentum_Pics.
And you can find me on Instagram at Rouzbeh Heydari, and the film will be out on Apple TV July 12th.
Absolutely.
All right.
And anywhere you can rent or buy the film, along with Amazon Prime as well.
Perfect. Perfect.
Awesome.
All right, guys, thank you so much again.
Thank
We
you so
really
much,
appreciated this, and
Really
hopefully we see you again soon.
Absolutely, man. Cheers.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Everyone have a great night.
You too.